5:30, and a little bit of a small crowd tonight, but it's good. We're gonna have a couple people join us soon. Tim has got a little car issue, and he's getting some help getting here. Mike he's on patrol tonight, and Carol's got some family concerns, so. Oh, there you are. We have not done roll call yet, so welcome.
So you are.
I was trying to stretch it to get you here, so. All right, so we are the Centerville Community School District, and our mission statement is all students will learn well, become lifelong learners, and contribute positively to society. Tonight, we're having a regular board meeting and then a work session. It is February 26th of 2024 at 5:30 p.m. and we're in the Central Admin office, and we are streaming online. Everybody watching this on Go Hills TV or whatever on the pitch. Thank you for joining us remotely. This is going to start with a quick regular board meeting. We'll call that to order with a roll call, please.
Berger.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Heffron is absent. Johnson.
Here.
Moore is absent. Thomas.
Here.
Wiskus.
Here. We'd like to welcome all of our visitors tonight. We've got a few, and one of them is Tammy, and she'll be talking to us tonight. But per our board practice, let me read the guidelines for public comments. We'd like to remind all speakers that while this is an open forum for any issues of praise or concern, the board does expect all speakers to maintain a civil tone and refrain from using profanity, raising voices, making statements that are threatening or harassing towards others. Any speaker who causes disruption may be asked to leave. We also want to remind all speakers that any comments that may be made during the public meetings are done so at the risk of the person making the comment. And the district will not be responsible for any defamatory, potential defamatory statements which may be made about a particular person or persons. In the board's practice not to engage or respond to speakers during the public comment session, regardless of the topic and or concern. If the board wishes to further address or discuss an item or concern raised in public comment, will do so by establishing an agenda item at a future board meeting or delegating responsibility to the admin to address the issue. Having said that, is there any visitors who want to make a public comment tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to approving the agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion second to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Agenda is approved. There is no old business. Moving on to new business. We are going to approve the second reading of board policies 400.3, 405.1, 405.2, 405.7, 503.1, 505.11, 501.11, all in one. We have already read through these once, and so as our normal practice for the second reading, we only take comments by section instead of going through each individual policy. Is there anything that we need to address from the previous, or any comments that anybody has on the second reading?
I didn't have any notes to that.
I didn't think there were any. Hey, Mike.
Motion to approve second reading.
Second. We have a motion second for the second reading of the board policies. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. The second reading is approved. Next thing is the personnel business procedures. And those are just a couple of them in there. So we got a band volunteer, elementary volunteer, track coach, and a gear up sponsor. And, oh, I forgot about that one, yeah.
Motion to approve personnel business procedures. Second.
We have a motion second to approve the personnel business procedures. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So approved. And with that,
Motion to adjourn.
thank you. Motion second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
See you next month.
My gosh, we were getting pretty efficient. Now that was quick. I have a feeling this next session, even though there's only a couple of things on the agenda, is going to go a little bit longer. So hang with us there online. I'll now call the work session to order with a roll call, please.
Berger.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Heffron's absent. Johnson.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Wiskus.
Here. Need to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion second to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Agenda's approved. All right, for now the work session, we need to talk about real quick about a potential change order.
So this, I wanna say this was last fall that we talked about this, and honestly, the fact that we hadn't gotten anything back, I assumed we were never gonna get anything back. But I got it back, what was it, last week, I think,
Yeah.
or the end of the week before. So I figured it wasn't like in my purview if a few board members asked me to look at a price for something and just say, well, that's too much. So I just wanna make sure that I brought it to the team so y'all could take a look at it and see what you thought.
It's almost $1,000 a foot, I think is what it is. It's ridiculous.
It's too much and only 6 foot tall.
So it doesn't even do anything.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna do anything for us. I think if we see that it's a problem later, we'll deal with it.
I'm thinking we could do it ourselves for way less than that if we need it.
I think
And I
so.
know you're against it, so.
Yeah. It's safety reasons, it's not a good idea.
I just didn't wanna make that decision on my own without letting the board.
Since it's a work session, we can't make a decision on, I think the guidance is.
Not to pursue a
Yeah.
whole bunch, yeah,
Die after tonight.
Yep, they'll just die.
sounds good.
But it is a change order, so we would have to address it at the next meeting.
It's not an official change order yet.
This
So
one's,
it's not an
This is
official-
just a
Okay.
quote to
sorry,
discuss
They're brought to us.
Yeah.
whether we think it's worth going forward with a
To get a
change order. And
Yeah.
Mark and I talked about it, we're just like, $1,000 a foot, no way.
No, no way.
We kind of thought that was gonna be the case, so.
I didn't mean to waste you guys' time, I just wanna make sure I was putting it out there.
Yeah, all right. And we actually talked about putting the regular meeting, but it was already typed in here, so we said, don't change it anyways.
Yes, okay, we're good.
All right, so moving on to the ISB work session. Everybody know Tammy? All right, I'm gonna give a little spiel here. So, 4 years ago, I was on the board, Mike Moore was on the board, Mike Thomas was on the board, everybody else has changed. 4 years ago, at our February work session, when we left that, not a single one of us in that room realized we would not meet again in person as a group for almost a year. Because 4 years ago, after this work session, the COVID lockdowns happened. And I'll tell you, you've been on the board a little bit, and Mike Moore and I are on the board, and I know we talked about, like, what did we get ourselves into? We met virtually, not everybody was there, it was hard to follow, and just dealing with everything in the pandemic, it was really hard to be a board member. And so it really didn't help with our kind of spin up to becoming a good board member. So then we started getting back together, and we started having all these committee meetings. We had facilities committee, we had finance committee, and so for the three of us that were on there, I know we talked a lot about it, you and I not so much, but we never felt like the committees were really getting the job done, because I was on the finance committee, we'd meet for an hour and a half before the board meeting, then we'd have like a 3.5-hour board meeting. We'd be here for 5 hours, 6 hours on that night, and what we come and says, hey, we're gonna go ahead and bring all these issues up for everybody to vote on, and we talked about it in the finance committee today, and you should just approve it. And same thing would come out of the facilities committee, and I would have questions about things on the facilities committee, because we were planning a high school at the time. And I remember one day, it was either you or, I don't remember who it was, either you or I questioned something really bad, and the response that came back was, you can almost predict it, right? If you can't trust your fellow board members in the facilities, then on those committees, then why do we have the committees? And you and I talked afterwards, just like, that's a good question, why do we have committees? Because I never felt like I really knew what was going on with facilities. I really didn't know what was going on in high school, and you guys didn't really know what was going on in finances. And so I don't think we were a very functional, effective board at that time, because of the way the information was flowed because of the committees. Fast forward, Mark comes in, we just said, let's get rid of the committees, and we made a bunch of changes. One, we read the mission statement, right? What's that? Yeah, well, we had to, because we knew you were coming.
Technically, we also discovered that they were against our board policy,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So we started doing that, and read the mission statement came out of an ISB session that I went to, it was a president session a couple years ago. We started bringing students in, and students to present once a month. We started having board meetings in buildings, and we now have a 5-year facilities plan from that. And we now have a long-range transportation plan from that. And there's been so many good things that are going, because one of the things we talked about is the decisions we make in this room affect 1,500 people that are not in this room, and it affects them on a daily basis. And so I guess what I'm saying is, from 4 years ago, just because the whole COVID thing, I'm not sure, it was really, we were the best board we could be, just because we couldn't meet together. And it took a long time for us to spin up. And now I think we're getting to be a very effective board. We've gone, we got the Better Board Award from the state, Iowa Association of School Boards, because enough of us qualified. And I think you got some updates for us where we're sitting on that, so I'll let you go through that. And everybody, the last 2 years, everybody's gone to the convention. And I think we're getting to the point where we're becoming a very effective board. I went back and did the math when you and I came on the board, because I just did that. The average board tenure before that was about 4.5 years. And when we came on, because new people come in with 0 and old people go out, it was like 2.3 years average board tenure, because you had new people in there. And so, before the election, before Tom and Carol came on, we were back up a little over 4 years of average tenure. And now we're back down to about 2.5. And what I realized from that is, we've got about a 2-year cycle right now, where we're gonna kind of get better and better, and we get really effective, and then new people are gonna come in. And I don't know what you're doing, I don't know what you're doing, I don't know what you're doing in 2 years, and you don't have to commit to anything, I'm not asking for that. But what I'm saying, what I'll say is that for the 20-some years that I've lived in this community, there's never been a board election where there wasn't at least one person that changed. So there's a probability that that's gonna happen. So we're gonna, over the next 2 years, we're gonna continue to grow in our effectiveness, and then we're gonna get new people. Then we're gonna grow, and we're gonna get new people. And it's gonna be a cycle that's gonna go on and on and on. And from my perspective is, we're a lot better than we were 4 years ago. I think we have a higher base of board professionalism, board knowledge, board education than when we got on the board, because there was no onboarding, there was nothing. And so I think we're at a much higher level than we are now, and so 2 years from now, 4 years from now, we should just be becoming more and more effective as a board. Okay? And so this is kind of what we're at, and why I've asked Tammy to come in here tonight. And if this turns out to be a really good use of time as we go through the self-evaluation and become a more effective board, then we'll keep doing these kinds of things. But it's only if the group, thinks that this is going to be effective, because this is kind of my deal. We talked about doing it. And so we'll continue down this path of board. I think board needs to be professionally developing ourselves all the time, leading by example. We're putting a lot of money in schools. We're trying to change some culture, and it needs to start with us as leaders. So, having said that, that's where I'm coming from of why we're doing this tonight, and I hope you guys get out as much from this as I do. So, with that, any comments on that? Go.
All right. Well, thanks for having me back to Centerville, friends. Some of you might not have had a choice. I don't know. Yeah, see, Tom's laughing. He's like, oh yeah, they just told me that they just wanted to show up. So I was gonna walk around I am. We're super high tech tonight, so here's your super fancy workshop packet. Might almost give you two. That we're going to work through tonight. And one of the things that I always like to point out is my super top secret cell phone number that's listed there. So call me. I talked to a board member this morning. She texted me first, do you have time today? And I'm like, I have time right now, call me. And so, and we talked last week. She said, when we talked last week, I thought to myself, I'd plug your number in, but I wouldn't call you again. I'm like, why would you do that? I said, that's what we're here for. And it is one of my favorite things to do is get to just talk through different things with board members. So you have my contact information. And I hope you will use it if you feel like you need to. And you don't ever have to text me first and say, can I call? It's okay just to call. So you all have embarked on some really heavy duty work. You did a board self-evaluation. And I have just a great deal of respect for that, because anytime you stop and take some self-reflection on what you're doing and you rate yourself on that, or you rank yourself, or whatever the terminology is that you want to say, that's hard to do sometimes. So Kevin shared with me your data, and I did some stuff with it. I kept the integrity of your data, but I'm going to give you that in a minute because I'm sure you're anxious to look at it. But before we do that, what I'd like you to do is in your packet, I'd like you to turn to page 1. And y'all are doing the heavy lifting tonight, and I tend to say that a lot, but y'all are really doing the heavy lifting tonight, because you're gonna read through your data, and you're gonna have conversation about your data, and I'm gonna hear about your conversation. But the first thing that I want you to think about is, what would you say to a community or staff member who says, seriously, Tim, y'all came together tonight to do that? That seems like a waste of time. Why do a self-assessment? Why do that? And there are no wrong answers, by the way, but I want you just to take a little bit of time and reflect, and because Kevin told me I had to, that is an answer, it's not the answer I'm looking for, by the way. And then the second question that I want you to give some thought to, Tim's still looking at me like, seriously, you're
If
picking
you ask
on me
him
now?
a form of question, that's okay, right?
Yes. The second question I would like you, though, to think about is, what are your best hopes? What do you want to get out of tonight based on the work that you did? So I'm just going to give you a couple minutes and answer those questions. I don't care if you write complete sentences. I don't care if you just jot some notes to yourself, but so you should reflect a little bit. That looks like a serious pen holder. Like
Lisa, you are packing, girl.
She's a pen
I
concept.
need to check this out because she's probably got like every color and every like.
She probably does.
She's like, boom, there we go.
Yeah, the purse is probably will be nice.
I like it.
Nice back.
It's too bad Carol didn't make it. You know, Carol and I both went to that session.
You did. You guys sat right.
Yeah, and guess she has some family commitment or something. It was interesting, since we're the two new members.
Yeah, you'll have to make sure you catch up.
Yeah.
I get it working. All right, did you all get to jot something down? Okay. By the way, I did get a tour of your facilities before we started, and it's pretty amazing, the work that's being done. It was really fun for me. I told both Mark and Kevin, I'm like, I probably am a little geeky, but I'm like, oh, I can still smell the new paint, and you can, I mean, just right, the visualizing of, because it's exciting when you walk through your own district's projects like that, but it was really exciting for me to see yours and what you're doing, so that was really fun. And I also learned that y'all have been keeping it from me. I had no idea Simon Estes was from Centerville. How have I not known that? And so I'm taking pictures of these two, like, do you know who that is? And I'm like, I have a son who's an opera performer. Yes, I know who that is. And so I texted him the pictures, to which he has finally responded, and his answer was, I remember he was from a small community. I didn't know where. Like so, that was my fun fact for the day. So, all right, I'm gonna sit. I want to take some notes while you all talk, but what would you tell your community or staff? Why in the world are you spending a beautiful night when it's 70-some degrees out? You could be out working in your yard. Why are you here? Why a self-assessment? And Kevin's gonna go last.
And you can't say because I'm making you.
Well, you can.
Just,
Well,
well,
on and after. Yeah.
Do you don't like samples?
for starters, I hate yard.
So I went out because yard work's not too fun, all right.
Yeah.
I said,
Go ahead.
I said to better govern and lead as a board, we must know how the rest of us feel we're doing, both positively and negatively, because we're only one of 7.
Beautiful. Okay.
I have, to determine our effectiveness as a board, lead by example, and to help us make the best decisions possible for our district.
Okay.
I said to make us aware of possibly some of our shortcomings and how to correct them.
Love it.
I said learn more about other board members.
Okay.
I had, so we could kind of do like a reflection, so we're looking from a different view than being the board member going this way, look back.
Love it.
I already gave an opening monologue.
I know, so like in 6 words or less.
Oh.
Good luck.
I just said, you know, the board's the elected leadership of the district. We owe it to our community and staff, and especially our students, to be the highest qualified board we can be.
I like that.
I couldn't do it in 6.
It's okay, I probably can only write about 6, and there we go. It's like I'm gonna have to make sure I type this up right away, otherwise I'm gonna be like, what did I write?
We keep it online. There will be a video.
Perfect. You know, it's oftentimes I will say to boards, how do you evaluate yourselves? Or how is the board evaluated? And oftentimes I will hear an answer like, well, the community does that when they elect us or they don't elect us. And that is a form of evaluation. But I really like, Tom, what you said about make us aware of our shortcomings. Because there will be things when you are ranking things, whether you are doing tallest to shortest, whether you are doing alphabetical, whether you are doing best to worst, something is at the beginning and something is at the end. And so as you rank things, you've individually said, here are the areas where I think we do really well. Somebody else says, here's the areas where I think we do really well. So thinking about where do we maybe not do as well as something else, because nothing is bad. We're not gonna use that word tonight. But I love the piece about, you know what, we're gonna have some areas where we do have shortcomings, and what do we wanna do about those areas? Which, by the way, will be all the things you all will decide. And we will celebrate every one of those. And when I say there are no wrong answers, there really aren't. There are no wrong answers. This is gonna be your decision on what do you want it to look like to go forward. And to have a plan, to think about how are you gonna share that with Carol, right? And how do you make sure Carol's voice is still heard in the pieces of what you will work on tonight? Because that'll be important as a team. So what do you want out of tonight? What are your best hopes and dreams out of your work session tonight? Because Burke said I had until about 9:30.
We could go a little
He
over.
told me 10:30. He told me 10:30. I said,
We'll take our time.
Maybe he doesn't want to be long with it. I'm kidding. So how'd you answer number 2?
I would say more effective board and district. Being effective is something it's a moving target, you know?
Yeah, it looks different today than it did during COVID, right?
Yeah.
I had improve on our weaknesses and continue on our strengths.
Improve on our misses.
Weaknesses
Oh, okay.
and continue on our strengths.
He's got a real quiet voice. It's hard to hear him. Yeah.
Little guy.
Meek and mild.
I feel like he almost means that. Okay, who else?
I put down, have a better understanding of where the other board members see ourselves as a collective whole, and again, where we can improve and where we can continue to grow.
Okay. Y'all are so kind about me, right? Who's next?
I said a path to work together better.
To allow us to focus on things that may need some more development.
Awesome. And more development does not mean bad. Weaknesses is not a negative thing necessarily. Again, you ranked, and that means something's over here and something's over here, okay? Did I get yours? I don't think I got yours, did I?
You got mine? I was first.
Yeah, that's true.
Who did I
Yeah,
get? I missed Kevin. Do you think you would have told me eventually?
It's understandable.
Yeah.
Mr. Viscus, what did
Personally,
you-
I want to gain a sense of direction with what the board wants to do with board development. Because I don't want to force things upon the board, more than once.
Clarify. Moving forward.
I do force some things on the board, but if it doesn't go over well, I usually back off, so.
Okay, fair enough. All right, that's beautiful. So as I take notes, I will capture this and I will send that back to Mark and Kevin and make sure that you all get a copy of that, so that helps me. So, all right, let's take a look at page 3. Mark, you look like you're about to say something, I cut you off. Did I cut you off?
No, you're
Okay.
good.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about when you do a self-evaluation, there are a variety of ways that you can do this. And you did kind of the intensive route, which is lovely, which by the way, doing a self-evaluation and spending the time to do it is worth an hour of board development credit. The time you spend tonight together is worth another 2 hours. Oh, because I think I'm here 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan.
So from this session, you will earn 3 hours, and I've already had to make a mental note so I don't forget to give you that. It's really, really important work. So what you chose, or Kevin's direction was, you talked about standards for effective school boards. And I gave you a little blurb at the top of page 3 about what those are. So you're focusing on 6 key areas is what you rank yourself on and yourselves. And those key areas, what we have done is said, when we look at boards that are effective, and when we look at districts where students have high achievement, what are the things that the board is doing that we believe drives that achievement? Because we could be doing great things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's driving that achievement. So this is where these two things come to play, which also tells me student achievement is really important to all of you. And when I think about your mission statement, all students will learn well, become lifelong learners, and contribute positively to society. Your mission statement doesn't say most students. It doesn't say the students we like. It doesn't say the students who can read well, the students who read best. You choose all students, which is a beautiful, beautiful statement. And when I see that, I love to see that. Then I listen for how do you talk about that around the table? And do you always say, no, it's all students? I'm going to make an assumption that you would all say that each of your students will be reaching success different ways, and success will look different for them. When I toured the high school and I saw, or middle school, and I saw the shops area, when I saw the welding booths, when I saw so many different avenues that you are clearly wanting to say, we want our students to have lots of opportunities. Just beautiful, I love that. And that's a part of all students. So what I want to do tonight, before you dig into your data, you have on pages 3, 4, and 5, you have the 6 standards that Kevin asked you to look at and rate yourselves on. But I want you to spend a little bit of time in those standards, and I'm gonna break you into some teams to do this. So you have the visionary team. And I've given you some words that we use that talks about what does that really mean? Well, you'll see that word governance there. The governance team, it's the partnership with the superintendent. When I use the word team, when I sit in front of you, I'm making an assumption, it is this team. It is your board superintendent team. I don't pull your superintendent out separately because you need him as your educational leader. He needs you to say, open your checkbook. Can we have time for this? With Lisa's approval, he says open your checkbook. We
We're going to her first.
yeah, we all know. I used to say, I'm like, when I was asked to spend money as a board member, I would watch the body language of the SBO.
Oh, thank you,
Like,
that's,
wow.
yeah.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, because you, yes, are the pens still organized in the holster, or are they all of a sudden like that? But that visionary piece becomes really important. So that's where you talk about your planning, it's where you talk about your operational development, so we talk about your decision making, okay? These are some really high level pieces, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in groups of 2. You're each going to be, if my math still works correctly, there are 6 standards, you're each going to get 2, we can have 3 groups. You're going to come up with, what are the things, what are a couple of things that we do as a visionary team, if that's what you're assigned to, okay? It doesn't have to be earth-shattering stuff, but just that you're able to spend a little bit of time to identify what's the stuff that we do as a board we think falls under visionary team, okay? Second one is student learning. That one feels sort of obvious, right? But there's a piece of you are setting really clear expectations for your students, all students, right? I saw that in your mission statement. That you are having accountability, that you are looking at data through, most likely that accountability. You most likely are saying to Mark, we need to understand that we are holding our students accountable, and what does that look like? And I'm going to use Tom's words, and then if it gets a little sideways, if it's not quite where we want it to be, we high-five each other. That wasn't what we wanted the data to look like. What do we need to go back and do to get better data? Or we wanted to be at 100%, and gosh darn it, we only made 98. No, well, better high-five each other and go, how do we get the other 2%? What does it look like? Okay? And that you are collectively, by the way, doing that, both as a board and your community and your staff, that they're always hearing you talk about that, okay? District culture. I heard district culture a lot this afternoon, even as we were touring buildings and thinking about what do these beautiful buildings do for your culture, right? It's a piece of it. Do I feel good as a student to walk in to a brand new building? Heck yeah. To see soft furniture, to see new paint. In my own community, when I was able to be a part of opening new buildings, sometimes we were opening a building that was nicer than anything our students had ever experienced. Ever. And we had a student one time that said, can I just stay here? Like, can I live here? Except they were serious, right? It was that. So do they want to come to school every day? Absolutely. And you know what? Our staff, the same way, right? They're not worried that, and I'm not suggesting this is happening, by the way, but they're not worried that they're, I plugged in the space heater and I blew a fuse, or there's not enough outlets to reach to get to, or we have to do, that they're saying, hey, we have this great building, we have these things that are coming for us. So those pieces become a really important part of your district culture and the environment. So I like to be there, environment, I feel safe. I feel good about being there. Okay, we talk a lot about having eyes on our students, eyes on our kids, which also sometimes means that we're just giving a place for a warm building and where they get food every day. Because we know sometimes that that's not, our kids don't have that. Policy and legal, maybe not always everyone's favorite, and I know y'all have spent some time in a variety of ways on the legal avenue, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But you talked about policy tonight, by the way. You don't really ever get away from talking about policy if you want to meet that next piece about being legal, because that's really important. Your ethics, how the board models in what you're doing and what you choose in your decisions also helps guide your staff, right? Your staff is always modeling for your students, which is a beautiful piece as well. And you're modeling that we need to be legal, right? We have to keep our policies up to date, as an example. And your transparency, having your meeting online tonight, right? That's a beautiful effort of transparency. I saw the agenda was posted to the door. Yes, it's required. But it's also, right, it's a beautiful piece of transparency as well. So some of those things that you do that you might go, oh yeah, okay, no, but those are important pieces. We look at number 5, which is fiscal responsibility. That's where we say we're so glad we have somebody strong like Lisa who says, yes, you have money to, no, you don't, you can't take it from that bucket, no, we need to go to this bucket. That she's helping guide your financial health, and she's absolutely working hand in hand with Mark, right, to say, here's where I think we can do this. Do y'all ever do the, could we wait and pay this on like July 4th versus June 30th, right? Like, how do we, but the pieces are gonna, how do we continue to function and stretch our dollar and make it work for us? And where do we take, can't spend extra money on just any old thing, or at least so they say. And what does that look like, right? Title I funds, like where do we take that money from? Lisa's also, I'm guessing, working heavily with Mark to say, what's the risk of the district, right? What do things look like? What are we anticipating? Guessing you're probably looking at what your enrollment looks like, right? That's gonna affect your dollars. If only we were SSA. All right, I'll leave that small code. And then the last one, speaking of advocacy, that last one, number 6, is the advocacy. And, you know, I think we automatically think about how are we advocating at a state level, which is a beautiful place to think. I don't know in the last 5 years that I could say I've been somewhere during the session of our legislatures and I've not said, this year feels really challenging. It feels like every year it's been, in some way, it's been challenging, right? And it's different in different districts, but that piece is beautiful, but it's also what are you doing locally in your communities, right? How are you talking about those pieces? How are you encouraging parents, right? How do you encourage them to reach out and be part of that grassroots effort? All right, so those are 6 categories. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have you work in teams of 2, and I'm gonna mix you up a little bit from how you're sitting. I'm gonna give you some flip chart paper, and I'm gonna ask that you take your 2 numbers that are assigned to you and think about what are some very specific things that the board does that represents the pieces or the standards that you're assigned. Does that make sense? I'm gonna put Mike, T, and Tom, I'm gonna put the 2 of you together, and I'm gonna have you do visionary team, and I'm gonna have you do student learning, okay? Then I'm gonna put Tim and Kevin together, see if I can do this, not screw up my math. And I'm gonna give you all district culture, number 3, you have number 4, policy and legal. Mike and Derek, can you guess which ones the 2 of you have?
7 and 8.
Very close.
Yeah.
And it's paper effort. So you're gonna have financial responsibility and you're gonna have advocacy. Now, I did not give you 5 because you're sitting closest to Lisa. So there is no turning to look at her for, you can share that when the time is right. It's your name, Lisa, it just says Lisa at the top of the all right. You are just looking for 2, 3, if you're really an overachiever and you want to come up with 4 things for each of the categories that you're assigned, but you're going to share that back with the team, okay? And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do that. I'm going to set my timer and I'm going to bring you some flip chart paper so you can write them down. And if you need to move about, you can do that.
I'm a fat man, I get the cat points.
Visionary team.
Can I use your chair to talk to Lisa through this?
No, you may not even know.
I'm going to put this right here. You can use wherever you need to write. Okay? So I keep going in here.
So are you someone that you fire? I am not.
You're going to write on page right
We got these, yeah.
You can put that word on.
What's the easiest one here to do?
Yes, they're all in there.
Perfect, I will grab this.
Okay,
Yeah.
the last one, board of Steve.
I guess we're gonna do it if you want.
I'm gonna bring you markers, so.
Oh, you're right, Mark. Well, I got a yellow one.
Yeah, no, those are highlighters, that's for a different activity.
You won't let me use a yellow marker?
That will not work for my 29-year-old wife, she gives me two.
Since we're talking about art work, I think. Because I feel,
Would you like the colors to write with, pick a couple?
I thought it would be such a good
Ooh, I'm a blue kind of guy.
school. I thought it would relate to,
Got two,
I
two.
didn't really think it would relate to the board so much. But I thought it could relate to the staff and the students and the community.
Well
I
played.
knew we had the corner from the band thing, so we just had such an upbeat attitude. I thought it was really getting back to center. That was part of it. Not that we're friends or do anything together, we don't. So I think our relationship was to be better. What I thought was always happened is true. I think that we have that
So
relationship.
we would say, based on previous experience,
You know, I wasn't involved in the previous experience.
you knew he was a medic.
Yes, right, right.
That's what it was.
Yeah, like, no, the last board member, last superintendent, I knew him from Wilton. You know,
Yeah.
so that's
Pepperoni, cheese.
Previous relationship.
Yeah, previous, yeah.
Decision maker, based on the deliberation.
I don't know how much,
Yeah,
I mean, it goes back to our, what's one
you know, when you're new, you don't. You don't.
I think a lot of that is based on some of the financial. Have you seen some of that? Where you're working?
Yeah, I was, and just, you know, I've been looking through some of the stuff in school and just listening
I mean,
to
how often?
things on
What happened?
their weekly
Because I
report.
didn't know. We had that.
The scariest thing I've ever heard. It's just like it's been so scary for our schools the last few years. It's just- And that's another reason that I wasn't happy with the way the legislature's been doing. I wasn't happy about vouchers at all. I mean, vouchers to me.
We have about a minute and a half left.
Oh.
Wow. Jeez,
Okay.
we're supposed to do two of these? We better write something down.
Oh, we gotta write them on the papers?
So what do we got?
I talk about what happened in the weekend.
Dave, you're very good again.
Yeah.
You're a problem.
We know we do it, we just, it's one of those things
We're working with it, you know?
Okay.
A lot of visionary and planning.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Well, we didn't have to put it on every one we do it.
I don't think so.
No, it's just, we cheated.
I gotta get out.
Chairman chip is going down.
It's okay, it's all right, it's all right.
Okay.
I probably can't even count how many that I've heard said in the last couple of years. After consulting with legal or whatever, said, I'm not sure we really should be doing that, like, for example, our committees. On the finance and policy, I know that they're getting paid attention to. Is there more that can happen? Sure, probably. But I could defend that that's been focused on anybody that brought that question out.
It's,
Under student learning, what would we say?
It is what it is.
Oh, we need to time this.
Conditions for success. I think we have a strong recruiting
And you don't have to do 2 or 3 for each of these, you're doing 2 or 3 here and 2 or 3 there. So if you only get 2, that's okay.
Yeah.
Tom, you are not gonna be fired. That is the most important thing you need to know. You,
A write-up, but not five.
Right up, oh, come on.
You gotta take steps.
There's a person who's been in leadership. Yep, you know how it goes.
read over, read over.
I guess,
Then you talk about,
I'm talking to you.
is it that your name's in all caps? Maybe there's something.
And underlined.
we were all.
Your name is up there too, my friend. So it's
Oh,
red.
wonderful.
Yeah.
You're on advocacy.
Oh, look at that.
But you're in black.
You both got
We
names.
never won copies.
But she's in red,
Yeah,
which means
red.
we're
Well,
losing
red is
money.
good,
She
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
like red.
We do want to really make sure all students have the opportunity. Support the district so all students can succeed.
There you go.
She paired those two together.
It always happens.
Everybody's always like, they're 2 jovial guys, this will be wonderful.
Just wait till the retreat.
Mm-hmm.
Wait till court.
I don't know.
The other gyms that we look down.
You're not gonna be there for support.
But
You're not gonna be there for support.
I think they have a very effective recruiting.
See when you squatch out.
Yeah. You know,
Pretty good, actually.
I think it's so important. There's not enough teachers that are out there anymore. It makes it tough. We want to get the best teacher. I don't care if they're from Minnesota, South Dakota, Des Moines, Winterset. Don't just hire all of them.
There's no reason we should.
That- I've seen that can be a problem anyway.
Yeah. I was gonna say that.
So do our policies, is that our policies? This is what we want to do.
Sure.
Say, this is.
Don't think that's the sports now.
Make sure I'm not against spelling.
Personnel, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna mess with
So,
sports now.
Remington is the one just to get some.
For,
No, I'm waiting. I'm gonna take it away from your mouth.
I'm very studious.
That was good. And I just rubbed it down enough so that I took it out.
that's not, hey, that law big statement.
There you go.
You want your, it's kind of cut your head out. Okay, you like it.
Flip it around.
Very
Holy
nice.
cow,
Very
look how
nice.
much they were.
This one I took him to.
We just write big.
That's Kevin.
Background, I'm like,
He's right.
He had it all
not
written down
necessarily
before.
blast
Yeah,
out
he-
on social media.
Kind of preview.
All right, you got them done? All right. So this, for those of you who said, one of the things you wanted to learn out of tonight's session is I want to learn more about my board members. I want to know more about how they're thinking. This kind of helps also set up, you've already done, right? You've already done your ranking, but this gives you some talking points about what do these things look like? Because you're going to come back to these lists in some way, shape, or form. All right, so who had visionary team? You all had number 1 and 2, right? Poor Mike, he just took a bite. Okay. What would you want to tell your peers about a couple of things from a visionary team perspective? What are some things that the board does that represents visionary team?
Well, the last one there, the board superintendent relationship, we just thought that the relationship between the superintendent and all of us and the school personnel, even more important than us, and in the community has to, if that can be good, that's such a big help. And we felt that Morris was real good in that part, and so I thought that was really important that they have that relation. And that's one of the reasons I ran for the board. I knew Mark a little bit, not his best friend or any friend anyway, but he was a darn good summer band director and he was so much fun. And the kids in the community.
Kind of a pretty saxophone player, but I'll do that on occasion.
You're a heck of a saxophone.
You're
And you know, it's a beautiful statement though to say that you're highlighting that relationship is important. And by the way, does that mean that y'all are always gonna agree on every topic?
Oh, no.
And isn't that
I'm sure.
what part of a good relationship is about? Is that you maintain respect for one another, but that you go, Mike, I can't see it that way. What are you, Tom? What? That you are able to push each other a little bit on your thinking around the board table, right? That's a beautiful piece. All right, what else, friends, do you have? Do you have anything else for visionary team? Because you also did student learning. You want me to put that up over here, Tom? I can put that
No,
up.
it's
Okay.
Okay.
I'll put it up over here and then we'll get it nice and big. How's that? Okay. Mark made 2 lists that I've seen so far, so that's a cool thing. All right.
Take it.
Okay. How about this one? Is this under student learning or is it still part of visionary?
That was still visionary, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we thought, we like the statement that Kevin reads at the start, you know, that we want conditions that all the students, and we want our school system to be available for all the students to succeed in whichever way we do. And, you know, I just think that's simple, all schools should be there.
I wish they did. I think that's a beautiful statement. All students did that. All right. Anything that you want to add for, anything else you want to add for either visionary or student learning? I think that's a beautiful example of even reading your mission statement being a beautiful piece of what you do in support of student learning. And y'all might go, well, really? But that's a great example.
You know, an example, I wish Carol was here, because she brought it up, and
I did not notice.
and one of the principals brought it up last time too, is, you know, some of the students that, you talk about the students that want to live there. We probably have some students that want to live at our school too. You know, their situation's not so good, and the food situation's not so good, clothing situation's not so good, and that they need, you know, they need more than just learning to read and write and all that. So we want to be a school that be able to handle those situations that we can.
And I'm guessing that you are able to do so many of those things, from feeding them to just giving them a safe place to.
I found out that, I mean, you know, Mike and I both thought, and of course Carol thought too. So we know what those kind of situations can be like, but, you know, but no, I don't know in this school system exactly. So that was a big help to see that they were really on top of that. I was very
Can I
happy.
say how glad I am that you bring that up? I met with the nurse team last week, and we meet each month and we go over a handful of topics. And one of the topics that the Lakeview nurse wanted to share with me was just how appreciative she was to the person who had donated the washer and dryer at Lakeview. And she got teary-eyed and said, there's so many of these kids, they don't get to come in and clean clothes, so like we clean clothes for them so that they can wear clean clothes here at school and go home and feel good about themselves. And like to think about that is such a big deal. So, and we've got staff that are really super engaged in that work. So thanks for talking about that as a big part of it, guys.
Isn't that amazing? Let's just think about that for a minute. Clean clothes. And yet, we're going to talk about, let's hold the system accountable. Let's look at data. Well, you know what? How do you do that if I don't even feel good about when I walk in the door? So that is a beautiful example. All right, thank you for that, gentlemen. Let's talk about 3 and 4, district culture, policy, and legal. So what are a couple examples of how Centerville, what are some things you do under district culture?
So without getting too deep into the high quality staff, we talked, it starts with the hiring of Mark and the work that he's doing with staff.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure that level of work's been done before, and that encompasses a ton of things. So having the right leadership, and all we did was hire the right guy. Under shared leadership, as we looked at, we talked about that, was sports instructor that develops instructional leadership and collaboration. What Tim and I talked about was, we think that kind of gets lost in the mix. In other words, we'll, as a board, we'll get reports, but it's just, then we kind of move on to the next thing, and so I'm not sure we're actively doing anything other than just getting the reports, and it just kind of gets lost. And I think a lot of these things kind of, that happens to me.
Okay, put a pin in that, hold that thought, because that's gonna be part of your next exercise.
Okay.
Because that's a beautiful statement.
And then, looking at the environment, it says safe and secure. We kind of took it differently, it's like, since 2017, this district's investing $30 million in capital infrastructure. That's probably more than it's been in the history of the district combined, only because of inflation and everything, it's been so long. So I think to create the best facilities we can, Mark says it all the time, if the kids in West Des Moines can have it, the kids in Centerville can have it.
Love that.
So we think from a culture, we're definitely doing our part from investing into the environment.
Okay.
Then on policy and legal, so I put this one in red because under policy leadership, when we see the data, I think everybody rated this one like
If you
8, 9.
didn't, don't.
Oh, I can't say nothing?
Don't give any hints to
Then
that.
I am gonna leave that where it is. I'm
Okay,
not saying
beautiful.
squat,
Beautiful.
because I did something specifically.
Back in it.
Moving on to the board table discussion, we often hear.
We need Lisa here more often.
So what Tim said was, on legal, we kind of hear, from Mark, when we talk to legal, and so we know that we're doing things that are in accordance with policy and state law. We hear that a lot, so we appreciate that. And then from transparency, well, we have online meetings. So,
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, let's talk about the last two, fiscal responsibility and advocacy.
Fiscal responsibility, all jokes aside, Lisa is a massive part of that and tries to help make the convolutedness of the school finance somewhat palatable for us lay people. But, Mike and I were talking, really even since I got on the board, 5-year plans as far as facilities, the 5-year outlook as far as the district budgets, things that we can hammer down and know that this is gonna have to be replaced here.
and the transportation.
The transportation side. And so that's, the department heads were given a task, they did it, they brought it back. And now we've got that living document that we know, okay, this is gonna be what we're gonna be facing 3 years from now, 4 years from now, and it's just gonna keep going. So I think that is huge. Every month we get the financial report, so we see what bills are getting paid. And if there's something on there that we have a question, we can ask, hey, what was this? And it gets explained to us, and it's not why are you asking it? It's, well, this is this, and this is why. Because a lot of it, we'll look at it, that seems like an odd number, what is this? We're gonna pay it, it's transparency amongst the leadership and the board, because at some point, if it gets asked of us, we can say, well, this is what that was actually for.
This is a beautiful example, because again, I didn't get it right, but you probably, at least I always felt like I just did it. I knew it was coming, it was my least favorite thing, sorry Lisa. It's my leader sling, and to help make sense, because Derek, I am the layperson right there with you, I only know enough to be dangerous, school finance is hard. So it's also beautiful that you're saying you have somebody that you really trust. Lisa, how many years have you done this work?
18, but not all of them here.
Okay, but 18 years of experience, and I'm pretty sure she must have started when she was 3. So this is huge, having this spot, someone that you trust and know, and that you're comfortable asking questions. So these are beautiful. All right, advocacy.
So for this one, kind of mentioned our local advertisement, media with the newspapers, the online presence that we can get out to, as well as our social media that is ran, I believe, out of this building, plus our HR that we hired, or not HR, but PR. And then as far as the legislative, basically we just allow Mark to, we don't hold him back from being involved in the organizations of the groups.
Beautiful. There are 7 other pieces of advocacy I would also invite you to not forget. Do you know what they are? Those of you that sit around the table. Because friends, if you all aren't advocating, and not necessarily again just at a state level, but if you aren't advocating for your district, every time you have a chance to talk to somebody, nobody else is. So don't forget, I can tell by the way you all talk about your district, that you are absolutely doing that. All right.
So you're saying advocacy is within the community as well?
Absolutely. Well, it certainly can be, but you all are also going to keep talking about that, and you're going to decide that. So here's what I'm going to do next. This is the part you've all been waiting for. I'm going to give you back, I'm going to give you your data. You may, if you would like, go sit back where you were, but I'm going to tell you you're going to work with your partner some more. So if you want to just sit where you are, it might be easier.
No reason to move.
No, probably no reason to move. You were all quick to get.
Well, I didn't want to take Kevin's seat.
All right, so here's what I did. I received your data in an Excel spreadsheet. Friends, I am a visual learner. I need pictures. It forces me to look at data a little bit differently. So here's what I did. I took your data and I did not change your data in any way, okay? We used the averages, and full disclosure, I didn't really do it. I have the really smart people that can do it. So I just created charts. So the very first one is your overall, your six standards that you looked at, okay? Then, as you turn the page, I just took each one of your 6 standards. So advocacy is there, and I just realized we did not put these in the same way they're listed, and I'm so sorry. So you have advocacy listed, and then I dropped in the Excel data, so if you want to see the Excel data of who ranked how, you're able to do that. Okay, and I did that for each one. Here's your task, and I'm gonna give you a good 15 minutes to do this, so I really want you to spend just some time thinking about this. So you're gonna now work from 2 packets. Because you're gonna look at your workshop packet that you were looking at on page 7, where it says small group discussion. And even though it's headed, the title there says small group discussion, you're going to do some things individually first. You are going to look at questions 1, questions 2, and questions 4 in your packet on page 7. And I want you to individually just spend a little bit of time. The first thing I want you to do is just read your data, look through your data. And I want you just to make note of anything you see that sticks out to you. Friends, there are no right or wrong answers. I did this exercise myself, so it'll be interesting to see if anything that I wrote, you all wrote. I don't want you to get, don't get too hung up on who ranked by how much, but look for overall themes. Okay, so I want you to do that first. Then when you look at, you think about the strengths. So when you look at question number 2, and by the way, I screwed up your coloring. I did not have blue highlighters, so I brought you green. But I want you to go through, in question number 2, what I want you to think about is, what data do you see that you feel like we hit it out of the park? We do this thing, we do it really well. And I don't care if you asterisk it, I don't care if you put a heart by it, but something that green is going to tell you that's the thing that, this is where I'm really, really happy with what I'm seeing, okay? Question number 4 asks you then to say, where do we need to think about future action? And you're going to highlight, or you're going to star, or that's going to be in yellow. Friends, question number 4 doesn't say, what are we not doing well? That's not what that question says. That question says, what's worth us considering future action? Okay, so I just want you to have that in your frame of mind as you're thinking through this, okay? I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes. I'm going to stop talking, and if you have any questions, holler, okay? And if you need to move somewhere else, you can do that. If you want to spread out, you can do that, whatever you're comfortable with.
And if you need to pull your packet apart, if that's easier, you are more than welcome to do that. By the way, there is no, you'll have time to talk with a partner soon, but for right now, you're just talking, looking independently.
Right, 15 minutes on
Yes,
that one.
yes.
He was ready to jump into some stuff.
Well, it probably doesn't have anything to do with it too much, it was just something funny, I know that. Remind me to
All right.
And Tim, you may want to make note of that, and what are themes, what are things you notice, it's okay.
I know which one.
Should I point to it as you walk over here?
That was gonna be one of my questions.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's pretty high. Oh, that didn't bother me. That's like right in range. Flip the one. It's a little concerning.
Put these two colors on.
I'll admit I got a little,
That's all right.
Well, I did that on purpose.
I had heard rumor that there may have been a score like that.
What's your overall there?
No, that's the white.
That was very, stick out.
Well, that's what this is.
Yeah, no, good. Yeah, I didn't think anything of that. Yeah.
You know, it's just, because once they know.
Did you look at your scores? I think
No,
that's score on your scores.
It was a head scratcher.
That's one of your higher scores, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, a few hours for it.
Yeah.
And part of it was figure out what you know.
I think I raised too high.
no such thing, Tom. There's no
Yeah,
such
that's why they
thing.
average it.
You want one of that three colors?
And you have to start somewhere.
What's that?
You have to start somewhere. When you're here, you're learning outside.
What do you put down for strikes?
Okay, now wait a minute, you're not don't talk to each other yet. Mike and Derek are gonna win the award so far, they're the only ones that have like stayed totally focused.
I just marked.
They're pretty nerdy, really.
I want everybody to have time, cause like you may get,
Facilities, yeah,
your groups may get mixed up.
That was okay.
I think you're right. And then what's, future
You know, I didn't know you understand ethics, so get that one, you understand the little, you know, ethics are, like this, this staff really sure of that. It's like, I know about. I was stupid.
Overall.
I think you're right. I think you got it.
I do know this, what the community thinks of the school board stuff, what we do.
You know, and I often say, the employees,
Yeah. Yeah, they do that. I think for people to learn,
There's 6.3 of the law.
if not, no 5.9, offended your camp, it's a lot.
No.
For the community, they really don't know what's going on. The legislature, if you have a good community newspaper, you have some of these different things that put out. Now, a lot of people may be registered, but not that many. I really registered forever, I quit last summer. And I was gonna start it again, and I sent in to do it, but I haven't started again, and you get so much online, you don't need it as much. But for the general population, with the paper, they do read it.
Yeah.
And if we had this on the paper, they do read the side of the paper, or at least the educated community that wants to, some of them never gonna read anything. They do that, yeah, that's the thing.
The worst part is someplace, it's where they're getting their information.
Absolutely.
It's very fortunate. I know some years, a lot of it, even the news you watch on TV, there seems to be really bad gender. It's not when Walter Cronkite.
We need water. We're got the water.
That was the truth. Yes, he's without the discussion.
I did straight up.
But, you don't get, as you get pulled over. And I kind of think that the register let that chance over that.
They did. Yeah, they were pretty good. Do you ever watch the Iowa Press on Friday night? I think they do a pretty good job.
Do they?
And it used to be David Yepson who was in charge of it. Now this gal,
Hey, Tom,
no,
did you end up going to the advocacy day in there?
no, I didn't.
I know you're talking about, I was
I
gonna say,
thought,
if
but
you
I
didn't.
didn't miss it.
How are we like exploring?
Yeah, that would have been
What we
nice.
are looking like.
Didn't go to the governor's house or anything.
And what we
I
can.
didn't think of that.
What did I notice?
One of my best friends. Really nice letters to Dr. Harris and the representative, our state senator, and that's when I can't think of his name.
All right, I get the sense that y'all have done your self-reflection, is that fair? Because when the room goes up, did I give you too much time? Did you all get to do your self-reflection? Well, you gotta answer your individual questions, yes? Because I can't hear all that. All right, so here's the next piece then. Now, in the groups that you're in, what I want you to do is, I want you to talk about, shared. You each get, collectively you get two. Two, two, and two. What are two of the strengths that you saw? So if you pick four between you, you gotta whittle it down, okay? If you agree, that's fabulous. Two of the green and two of the yellow. So two things you wanna focus on, two that you are saying we agree on. And I'm gonna give you more chart paper, because I want you to chart up your answers.
You pick the green and I'll pick the green.
Yeah.
Take this one as well.
And you have to have consensus between the two of you, or actually it's an agreement between the two of you, but.
Well, I thought two green ones.
I'm ready.
I don't do one thing. I know. When I came on the board, this board been like, I don't need proximity on there. And then the way that things have changed, I know we tried some legal issues, but I think it's very professional work.
I don't know
Board supervisions, broadcast, all of our policies review. So I think that's policy and legal.
Perception out there is pretty good old stuff and everybody else.
That'll help us all. Does that
That's
work?
fair, it's very.
Okay.
Sure.
I could look at somebody right now.
You said only two, so I guess when
I'm aware of it.
So you're doing question 3 and question 5 right now.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy, but one of the ones that's very.
And listen to all of this, because it has to be a little boring.
We need to work on the high quality.
So, it's interesting to see how they, work on the engine.
That's a really
Always
good
got
analogy,
it.
I like that.
Because it changes all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
how many people are applying for jobs? When it used to be 20, it may be one, but it's maybe 2.
Yeah.
So you don't have to follow the people that are applying. People have left their state.
Was there a second one we did there?
Yes, we did. Staff learning is about. They have their.
It's gonna be red.
But you have to be, because right now, you have yellow, you actually have all of this behind you, if there's something. Yellow will like show very well, so.
This is something we need to always work on.
Sure. There's two of them. Yeah. You guys just make stuff.
Your chart paper's right over there, Ron, will you write your green in green? And then for whatever you had in yellow, you put whatever color you want. And it doesn't have to be a complete sentence, you can write
They're
bullets.
just hard to do.
No one's ever told me that today.
You want to Hey, don't be so wordy over there, would you?
Hey, Mark, Lisa, the percent, UAV and what's the other big metric?
Solvency.
Solvency ratio. I could not come up with the word solvency.
No, you did.
Correct. That's a word Mr. Trump may or may not have.
He may have some liquidation problems coming up.
You know, woman, always women faults.
Not going there.
Vision.
You're fine, it doesn't matter to me. Don't do, you're fine. You're way more concerned about this than anybody else, I think.
Yeah, I think that.
That's it.
As a whole.
Because that drives that.
So we need to hang that up?
Yeah. They got one.
Yeah.
There.
Put Roger was done, the other one. We're in good shape, Ron.
I hope that, I guess I can figure out lowest score there, but it's
Derek?
clear expectation.
You guys get pretty close. You do a ride along.
I used to. Let me tell you this. If you ever wanted to pick and you said you're gonna pull somebody over because they got a license plate. License plate lights out, you said I would not.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's like 2007, 2008. I would have hit with
When I started, I was a bell bottom.
He's sticking right in the, boom, right in the eye.
I was for a week, a decade on all the committees that I've been on.
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of put a limit on things too. I was on the Veterans Affairs Board for 10 years, I said, no. And you have to be, you don't get that full compared to the school board, because the budget's only $50 or something, and
Not much to work with.
it's not much to work with. And everything's so, you really don't have to make a lot of decisions. You have to, you make a decision to hire the person, and that's pretty important, and then you kind of put a lot of money to make sure. But then, it felt like you're kind of wasting your time with me, and I don't like to waste time with meetings. Oh my God. Well, yeah, sometimes you have to go to a funeral or something like that, but you have to be careful, because how many funerals you gonna have in a year, you know? And sometimes, yeah, you can't be careful, believe it or not, there's some people like the double dipping system. I don't know how that works, but geez, and here they are, you know, and I'm not saying, hey, they're low income, obviously. You gotta be low income, but you get help from us, yeah, you make less than $900 a month to get in.
Anyway, what I was gonna tell you.
So, yeah, but then some people get help, then they get some other help from some other stuff.
For church.
Well, no, not the church, your VA. That's done. They're helping VA, we don't need this.
It's a, it would be a tough spot. Is David G still involved?
What?
Is David G still involved?
I, you know, I really don't know him, so he was hired after. We hired Mo.
Yeah.
He was,
David G's, he's kind of a bulldog.
is he?
He's after the county to do
But
that.
Well, that's good. I mean, I talked to him before, I thought about going out and visiting up there again too. I still know other people. Well,
And taking
yeah, I still know the three
I
board members.
really like David. I've known him as a customer first, and then he got involved in that. We talked, and he gets convinced.
You're not ever gonna get
And I listen good.
We got one more.
whatever word it is.
I talk a lot.
I'll be right in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm still a very good listener.
Sorry, Tom's quitting, he's gonna be.
It all kind of really hit it out of the park.
You know.
Tom, I feel like we put you at a disadvantage, we were just talking, we haven't done a lot of big things these last few meetings, like gigantic things these last few meetings, so it's like, you're having to go through this, you're like, oh God, I don't know, we haven't done that yet. I'm sorry.
I know Tom and Carol at a huge disadvantage.
You know, when I filled that out, and, you know, when I got it, I don't know if we have a hearing aids on, so I may not have heard the last part of it, or the end or something. So I didn't know if I was supposed to fill it out that night. So, but I did fill it out, actually. But it was hard, because you didn't, you know,
You got, no, it's by the end of the month.
It
That's
is.
what it was, so.
But you were good.
All right, friends, let's, by the way, I like to hear it was hard. I mean, I like to hear that because it means you have given it, you've given it some big thought. These are hard questions. My 10 isn't somebody else's 10, isn't somebody else's 8, isn't somebody, right? So even some of that, and I don't want to get wrapped into necessarily how you ranked, but more, again, looking at some themes. So here's what I'd like to hear from you is that very question number 1. What are your reactions to your data? Just, did you notice anything? What did you see when you looked at your data? Did anything stick out to you? Tim?
When I didn't listen and I started talking immediately. I noticed that Kevin and I ranked a lot of the things a lot lower than most of the rest of the board.
And
Okay,
you paired us up.
And we were paired up.
okay. That was not intentional.
True.
Okay, so, okay, interesting. What else?
My initial thoughts were, man, the student learning and our visionary, which is what our number one thing to be is, we're so low. as a board, we said no, so
Okay.
that was upsetting.
Was it, did that surprise you to see that, to be that low?
Yes,
Okay. Both of them?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. What else?
I thought it was fairly uniform. I mean, I didn't see any really, something really way down in a dump, and I didn't see anything that was exceedingly high. I thought it was just, kind of carried along. I didn't see anything glaring that led me to panic. I guess you'd say.
I agree, I thought everything was fairly in a fairly tight band and range. But I thought the range was a lot higher than I would have expected it to be.
Okay.
It's also, I think it's tough to say what my 5 is compared to Derek's 5. And that's the difficulty in doing a 0 to 10 scale when there's no, it's just your opinion on it, kind of thing.
Now, I'm gonna come back to what Mike said, though, you didn't have a lot of, I mean, I looked for that, and I was pleasantly surprised with with a 10 scale ranking, you weren't like this, you weren't all over the board, you had a lot of consistency, which tells me that tells me things are humming along well. When I start to see a lot of discrepancies or differences, that's where then I look for some different things. So I thought the same thing though, right? My 5 isn't, Kevin's 5 isn't, but yeah, but you did have a lot of consistencies. What else did you notice?
I thought that, Mike and I put down policy and legal and transparency were with the green, and I think in a way, those things are somewhat easy, because we know what we have to go there, we know what we have to do. And then we put the yellow, the student learning, and the high quality staff, which were rated kind of low there. And I think, those are harder things to judge, because we're not exactly involved with it. And we want those two, to put them in yellow just means we just really want to keep on top of those things and work on them all the time.
I love to hear that. I love to hear that. We put it in yellow because we want to work on it. It
So I
was
think,
top of mind. I
yeah,
love
what
that.
Mike said, we have the same thing, it just made a lot of sense for you guys.
Same thing with the student learning, we definitely want to improve on that. Looking through some of that, there's a lot of that we don't necessarily get at the board table, right?
And even if the student learning was just, we know that each school is different. And Southern Iowa is different than the middle of Iowa and Northern Iowa. And maybe our scores are gonna be a little lower. But even if they went up and up, we'd still be working on them all the time to make sure they're the best they can be and that they're all included.
All right, let's jump to your strengths, because y'all kind of went there, because we're gonna then, all right, so I see 6 strengths on the board, which by the way, it was lovely you all just put them up. I love it. So you have 6 strengths. If I said that I would like you to come away with 2 strengths, could you gain consensus around your top 2?
2 of the easiest ones for me would be the superintendent-board relationship. I think we all agree on that. I'm not sure, but I think we do.
Yeah.
And policy and legal, simply because we've been through the ringer. I think we're very focused on policy and legal.
Yeah, and I would echo that too, Mike, on the superintendent board relationships, and for those following at home that may not know, Mark usually every Sunday afternoon does send an update to the board with the goings-ons in the district, with his meetings, other meetings, construction meetings, whatever. So, every week as a board, we have a general idea of what is happening within the district, which I think, I don't like a lot of districts do that, and I'm appreciative of that. Just so we know what's going on. I mean, that's what we're for, that's what we're here for. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that along with that, how that relationship is, it flows down to how much we're getting done as a board for the district. If that relationship's not good, the board's not good, we're not getting a lot of good things done.
We're just showing up and rubber stamping.
I can agree with the board superintendent relationship.
Okay.
Now, one of the things I went over and told Mark, and I thought it was like, hey, I graded you as an 8. Only because when you look at it says, where is it?
And what he's just gonna justify.
See, I know, I feel bad, because we had 5s and 6s in some places.
He's had to defend himself around
Yeah.
a couple of times like
Yeah.
Oh, it says, cultivate strong relationship and partnership with superintendent based on clear expectations and accountability. My note was clear expectations and accountability, so I can go back to, first time we did a superintendent evaluation for a previous superintendent, that was the first time we'd ever see what the evaluation criteria was.
Oh.
And we had no idea what we were supposed to evaluate on.
Yep.
And so Mark, his first year, had 3 different meetings on what his evaluation criteria was, and he stepped us through it really, really well, and we all felt pretty good about that. And so the only reason to put it as 8, because I think you need to do that for Tom and Carol.
Yep, we'll probably do it.
And then we're back to a 10.
Okay. All right, so if you're gonna pick 2, you have policy and legal, fiscal responsibility, board relationships, and facilities. I'm not asking you to say you only did well in 2. I'm asking you to talk about if you're gonna gain consensus together, which 2 would you say you are the most proud of? Which 2 would you say the data shows, these are probably the 2 that it looks like where we really shine? Doesn't mean you don't shine in all of them.
To me, it's the relationship and then the fiscal responsibility, because I remember years ago when my wife was on the board and the dire situation the school district was in then, and to see where it's come from there to now, I mean, it's just tenfold.
Okay.
And we're able to
I would agree with that.
give the students a step with it.
And we talked about this when we were in the building tour. I can remember a time in this district, and I wasn't on the board at the time, where this district had to, I'm talking almost 20 years ago, had to borrow money to make summer payroll because they didn't have cash reserves. Yeah, that's like SBRC territory right there. And so to do that and then to be able to, over the last 5 years, spend $30 million on facilities tells me the financial management of the district has gone on, definitely improved. And that's a lot of previous boards that did a lot of that work, that they deserve that kind of credit. Martin Brasser deserves a lot of credit for his financial leadership for years to get us to the point where we can do that. So it's our responsibility at this point to maintain it. But I think when you look at a 20-year history of the district, especially when you look at declining enrollment, we are in a very, very strong financial position that we weren't 20 years ago. So there's a little bit of history there to know too. The only thing with that one is I did want to get back to Mark and Lisa regularly presenting the 5-year forecast to us, because we used to get that all the time. We haven't gotten the last couple of years, and I think that's just, that's to me, that's the missing piece in the financial side, is to get the 5-year forecast and put them more on. Sorry, I'm done.
Right, the last time we did that was in October, so we'll probably do for some more.
Hold that, 'cause
Probably
you're-
been a bit.
You might need that, just hold on to that for a minute. All right, so, do I hear consensus? Super board, I love this, super board relationship.
This is super cool.
And do I hear fiscal responsibility? I'm looking for all yeses around two.
Okay.
All right. Would you like to know one of the things I looked at when I went through your data?
Yeah, I guess so.
Maybe. I don't always see this as a high. This was your highest. I also wondered if this is recency.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Well, yeah.
Okay, now that's interesting to hear you all say yes. So, and I only know, right? I mean, I just know you've done a lot. You described it really well and where you've been to and from and back. But just knowing that that has been top of mind, when I looked at your data, I'm like, oh, that does not surprise me, but interesting. I wondered if this would be a year later, if you still would have ranked that as high.
It also coincides with, we've been catching up board policy that's 7 years out of date too,
Yes.
over the course of the last year and a half.
Yeah, the policy part is a huge piece.
Okay, so I'm gonna put put 2 asterisks right here. Again, doesn't mean that this is not important. It just means you're gonna high five it. When you all debrief this together, and I hope you do, and you say, you each take a little piece of the conversation and you're gonna share it with Carol and say, here's what we talked about. A really important piece is to say, hey, let's remember, here's where we agreed, but we're knocking it out of the park. Okay? All right. Here's where it gets a little harder. Let's talk about, remember, this is not what we're doing bad. This is where do we want to focus. Remember the word, the question is traits worth considering for future action. Okay? Y'all want to start?
You wanna go ahead?
Well, even though high-quality staff rank very high in the survey, we think that pedal to the metal, don't let up now, okay? Because that is our future.
Yeah.
And so that's why we put high-quality staff.
And we realize there's not, with Mark going to UNI and going to different places to find new teachers and staff members, it's not an easy thing as it used to be years ago. There's not,
Which then made that staff learning one huge, such a big deal.
yeah. And student learning, yeah, we always gotta keep on that no matter what.
Well, I gotta learn somewhere, right? The first time I do anything, no matter what it is, the first time I'm gonna be a police officer, the first time I'm gonna be a superintendent, the first time I'm gonna do anything, this first couple days might be a little rough, huh? Right? I mean, it is the piece of, right? I have to get the experience and figure out what that is like, and oh, by the way, there are fewer people going into education right now. And so thinking about that, we gotta keep the pedal to the metal, I love that. I love that. All right. What about student learning? Just, we are same thing, we just pedal to the metal, we wanna make sure that we're focusing on that for our kids. Okay? Y'all are up. No fixes, just,
He's shy now.
It's a wax mustache over the lips.
So we had the student learning,
Jim's like, I'm joking.
so we had the student learning, want to focus on the expectations and holding people accountable. And then the fiscal responsibility, we still need to stay on top of that. And then, well, it's not doing any fixes, but we'll just make sure we're getting the 5-year forecast, and that's a good thing.
okay?
Student learning, again, we've all kind of echoed each other, but that's definitely some areas of improvement. Me personally, I wasn't necessarily surprised to see that there. There's a lot of what goes on in the buildings that we don't necessarily see or hear, for one reason or another. And it kind of ties into district culture as well. I'm gonna get a little negative, but not the way you think. Not the way you think. So, we hear all of the good that happens in our buildings with our principals' reports, with our student presenters. We don't always hear the struggles that our administration team may be facing. We don't always hear some of the struggles that staff, aides, whatever it may be facing, until it's too late and there's a huge problem at the table. So, Mike and I were talking, it would be nice, I don't wanna, here's the good report and
Don't do a fix.
here's this.
Don't do a fix.
Don't do a fix.
I already got yelled at for it.
Just
Be careful.
Who's not yelling?
to hear more of the bigger picture. I think we can us more effectively at this table.
That's a beautiful statement. All right, friends, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 choices. What are the 2 areas? Now, this does not mean if you don't pick student learning, I would not suggest that because you have that on all 3, by the way, but it doesn't mean if you don't pick something, doesn't mean you're just throwing it caution to the wind. That is not what this means, okay? But this is where the rubber's gonna meet the road. If you can pick 2 areas, what are the two areas that you really wanna focus on? For at least the next year, I'm gonna say.
Student learning.
Student learning, you agree? Okay, all right, I'm giving this a little asterisk, which helps me, so if I do this and do this, okay? What's the second one?
Would you explain your district culture, that answer there?
Yeah, district culture, there's just a lot that we don't know.
Oh.
You know, we get the good.
Okay, that's kind of what you're talking
Yeah,
about there.
that's wrong, just so we have a better, you know, feel on the pulse of what's going on within the buildings and staff, students.
It's the lost in the mix.
Yeah. You know, truly the day-to-day that we're here to impact positively.
So my question on that is how much of that is rowing versus steering?
Good question.
We're gonna talk a little bit about that if you pick it.
Uh,
I mean, it's a good question.
I'm not trying to offer a fix. but That
Why not?
probably plays into when I bring something to the table to ask the board to like accept a new idea or change something. I probably should talk more about the challenges that led to wanting to make that change. Cause like I had emailed in my weekly email last week or the week before, I forget which, but about at-risk programming for the district. And there are some real challenges for students that I think that could be a solution to. But like, instead of just talking about the solution, maybe giving some of the legwork of, and here's kind of how those problems come to be and what that looks like. Like that really gives me pause to think the presentation method could include that. I just tend to be like a, just get it done kind of person, so I have to remember the
I think a lot of us
background.
are that way too, though.
Yeah.
We just cut to the chase, get to the point, let's go, but I just,
Yeah,
you know, just, whether it's, and again, I can go back to, sorry.
So you want some more background?
But
Yeah.
that's good to hear.
So,
Yeah.
so where you have district culture here though, that really, I think, is where the high quality staff fits
Yes.
in, yes?
Yeah, that, it all ties together, I think. But I think that's steering. When a problem is presented and a solution,
Sure, yeah,
that's steering.
yeah.
Do you know, if you look at your, do you know which of the individual categories, so not the top 6, but the categories underneath each one, do you know which one got the highest ranking? It's okay to say no.
No, if I go back and look into it.
It's on your chart. This one right here, got 8.6.
Interesting.
It's your highest one. I'm not saying you shouldn't focus on it, I just, that was the kind of stuff that I went through and I looked at when I was looking for things, so on my chart has a little heart by it. So you ranked this very high collectively. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't focus on it, I think it's also a beautiful point when I said, when you put it in yellow, it doesn't mean you aren't doing it well. It means we gotta keep the focus here. You have, if you look at this, I think we just use different words, right? This is a piece of district culture, and you have district culture. So you have that listed twice. It doesn't mean, my sense is you'll never ever take your eyes off this, no matter what. Is that a fair statement?
Right.
Right.
Does that help drive you to what your second one might be?
No.
What's your second one you want to focus on?
District culture.
I think the high quality staff is where it all starts and stops.
And this is in your district culture, so I'm counting that as
As
part of that, because you're right. This is a huge piece of your district culture. Under district culture, it's environment, staff learning, shared leadership, and high quality staff. And high quality staff was the one that you gave the high ranking.
Well, it's interesting, because we did a lot of work on environment through the safety grant, well, less than we wanted to do after the new camera costs came in. But we've taken a lot of steps with that as we've planned through buildings, but like, staff learning is not something we've talked a lot before about. And I just think, you know, now that I've got Julie, it's probably something we need to present to you guys more often. So you know kind of where we're going with our staff.
Go back to when Grummeyer came here, and they took the survey of what we wanted in the superintendent. What was one of the things that we wanted?
Creates culture.
Culture. So it probably ought to be up there.
Yeah, it's good.
When you also look at your district culture, you have the biggest gap in your individual pieces, which is something else I noticed. So when I look at each of your 6 standards, you have a pretty big gap. High quality staff is 8.6, but staff learning is 6.9. It's almost 2 full points. Not great in math, but close, right around Lisa, and I don't do.
Well, she's precise, she doesn't.
But I know.
She's running about.
But that's about the biggest gap in your categories that I saw as well. Which would also lead you to, I'm trying to validate what you are coming up with what I looked, outsider looking and adjusted some pictures of what I saw. All right, so I think you just picked district culture, yes? All right, you have 2 more assignments. Let's see if you do these as quick since our time is almost up. Here's what you're gonna do. What did I just miss?
It is.
All right, why don't you take a look at page 9. All right, fixers, here's your chance. You're gonna divide and conquer, because you picked 2, right? You have student learning, you have district culture. So, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm giving this half of the room student learning. I'm giving this half of the room district culture. So you're gonna write that on your top of page 9, that's what you're working on. And here's what I want you to do. What are things, if you're working on student learning, what could some of the key work be that happens at the board table around student learning? I'm going to make a fair assumption, you're not gonna sit down and read the 3rd grade math book together.
Guarantee that's right.
You could, but what other types of things might you focus on? And friends, you don't have to have the exact thing, but you might be saying, I want Mark to bring us more blup. And then y'all are gonna talk about what blup is. And because y'all did such a beautiful job talking about what's steering and what's rowing, so if the board is going to dig into, learn about, review, what will it look like? What will the superintendent be doing about blup? Whatever that thing is, this is where you get to say, I think this would help us fix, or focus on, or put an emphasis on. And if you don't have an exact answer, that's okay. Derek, I think, has some ideas. I heard him start to say them when you were talking about district culture, right? So what could that look like? This next part of the information that you can give back to Mark will help him guide you to, here's what I think I could bring you. Because we already know that we want to see the 5-year blah, blah, blah. Lisa's like, check, I got it. Done, right? But what is it? What are the pieces? So Tim and Kevin are going to do student learning. The full review, you're coming up with what could that district culture look like? What do you want to see? What's the thing that could be brought to the board table? Or how will you learn together as a board about district culture? Does that make sense?
What do you got?
So
different subsets.
It's your binder, it's your binder.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
I mean, I think of, like you said, the at-risk kids. And, they're a different, we need to, what the at-risk kids are doing.
I mean,
But we still keep it.
And how they,
Honestly,
the situation for them, ones are
once a
in
week, we
and how we keep in
How's
school.
this thing that
Sure,
affects
that's
my
why. They can-
I can say,
Or,
we get the good.
like, it's not gonna change.
Also,
What about truancy?
right.
Isn't that?
They don't want just.
right, as opposed to being just,
I
yeah.
like it. I want to be on there.
Yeah.
Because not
Oh,
necessarily.
look at it, they're like all coming together.
But to, you know, if we know, hey, that means we talk to people, you know, sometimes there's issues with listening, whatever. Not necessarily because they want to, yeah, fixing a day, but, yeah, that's what it is. It's just trying to get better, just a better.
It's hard to think a long time ago, but just think of the situation with bullying in school and how that can affect certain kids too.
And again, that's that fine line between what our actual job, our responsibility is.
But I think that is our responsibility in a, from a 1,000-foot view.
Right. Right, fix the problem, but.
As far as guidance on how we as a board then say, hey, Mark, this is what as a board, look into this. Not necessarily come up with a solution on our own, but say, this is what we'd like you to look into.
Set the tone.
Yeah, yep, yep,
I don't know.
That's always from the top down.
yep.
And believe it or not, we're above that guy.
Do you need a water?
No, I'm good.
So I
If I
have a
fall
couple
over.
things,
That'll get you that water.
I have a couple things written down for on the first one here.
Okay, go ahead.
So be advised of the TQ and teacher trainings ahead of time and how it relates to the staff.
Well, that's good, easy to see that.
And then, that, quite frankly, as a board member, the last few years, when we put this in, and I still don't necessarily agree with it, because I may not understand
You
enough,
guys are real quiet over there.
what the TLC does and how it benefits our district, teacher leadership.
Oh, it should be.
Because I know,
Oh, okay.
because I try
We
not
have
to,
new
but I don't get to
new
be in the
prescription. I've
schools.
always had the
I
progressive
see
and
some
I
of
got,
those people that are on that.
and they
that shouldn't be.
cranked it up twice, and so I feel like I'm learning to have
We
less
did,
exactly.
we mentioned.
And I did probably
There's
raise.
certain things that you talk about. Some were filled.
Right. But I think also though, that leads to, by us having that information, that leads to the culture and the environment in those certain buildings with making sure that as a board, we're approving the right people to be on those TLCs.
Is that steering?
No, because it has to come to us for approval.
Okay.
Because, yeah, no one micromanage,
Right.
under
Right.
micromanage.
The thing of it is, if you look at society in general, a leader really runs the
Yep.
It's not someone you appoint.
Right.
And I think the teacher leadership thing is not someone who rose to the top. Someone who just climbed in.
So I think that though goes back to the, on here, several, three of the district cultures, goes back to shared leadership, staff learning, and environment. So all those, put that all together can affect that stuff positively. And then as a board, if we have a better understanding of that, why they do it,
Provide direction,
how these
yeah, we're
boards benefit this district.
provide direction
Then
and
we could be a better
expectations for the
We
running.
can say, hey, okay, that makes sense, or yes, I agree with that, no, I don't agree with that.
You've got to establish it.
For education.
So we did the.
Just background, better understanding.
Yes, yes.
Center would
Yep.
is, because it's,
Because inevitably, we're gonna get questions in the public. It's like, hold on, let me get back to you on that, I'm not 100% sure I do. We should know a little bit about that.
Are you ready to talk about these out loud?
Yep.
Y'all are having a great conversation out loud, and here's a conversation. All right. Let's talk about student learning now. Here's where I'm not taking notes, but what are you thinking? For
So-
student learning, what could the work of the board look like?
The funny thing is, we both wrote our answers down, we compared what we wrote down to the exact same thing.
Seriously.
That's lovely, all right.
Yeah, so as far as the board's work is set the expectation on Mark's performance evaluation for what we want, and then we hold him accountable for those performance evaluation. And then as far as the superintendent admin team is, Mark sets the expectation of the building administrator's performance evaluation criteria, and he holds them accountable. It's pretty simple.
So if the criteria is something like, I'm making this up, so I'm not holding anybody to anything.
Right.
We want to increase our third grade reading level from 98% to 99%.
Yeah, we didn't get that deep, it's just like, we need to work with him to set that, and then we're held accountable for it.
Okay, but for specific to
Right,
student learning,
right,
is that?
yes,
Okay,
specific.
okay, so beautiful, so you're gonna do it through Mark's goals, which I love. So then that gives Mark an opportunity to think about different data points that he may bring to you throughout the course of the year,
And he
right?
should be doing that with his principals.
Yes, but to bring it back to the board, right, so that you all can say, or he can give you the heads up to say, well, how often do we do fast testing? Do we do it once a quarter?
3 times a year.
So the first time we do fast testing and we get the data back and we say, we're wishing the numbers were gonna be a little higher, but here's what they're looking like, okay, so we all own that data. And board, if the data's not where you want it to be, what is a governance level question to ask Mark?
What are we doing about it?
Okay, what else?
What are the plans?
Okay, what's another governance level question to ask Mark? That is a beautiful one. Tell me what the plan is. What else?
Are there any obstacles, or is there any resources you need from the board?
Love it. What are the obstacles that we can help remove for you? What do you need from us? That's also when you look at Lisa. Do we have any money to spend? Right? But I love that. So don't make the assumption that there may or may not be. So what are the obstacles, Mark, and what can we do to take those away from you? Or remove them, or what what do we need? Which may drive to, we need to change I'm completely making this up, we may need to change our whole professional development plan for the rest of the year because we whatever that is. And y'all go, okay, you think that's the right path to do? Do you need money from us too? Well, I might need some. And y'all look to Lisa again, right? You get that figured out. So I love that. So what obstacles can we remove? What obstacles are in your way? What do you need from us? Could you ask him that on almost everything he presents to you? And those are beautiful governance questions, right? What's the plan is also beautiful, but he could also go, well, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this. And if it were me sitting on the board who does not have an education background by degree, I picked up what I did just learning. He might be talking about things, I don't know what that means, might be, can you tell me what that means, right? And I don't. So really pushing yourselves to think about what are those questions to ask. It's beautiful. Anything else for student learning?
No, that's really it.
It's beautiful. You may want to consider spending a little bit more time as a board digging in on student learning, and I'm coming to district culture next, and district culture to say, what do we want it to look like? You may have to say, what are we missing? What else could we be talking about in the way of student learning that we're not today? Or do we get so excited to see the 5-year plan, we breezed over fast data, and not that both aren't really important, but should they be on separate agendas? So that we can really spend time on fast data, and then really spend time on that 5-year plan. Or whatever that is, okay?
All right, what'd you come up with for district culture? I loved, by the way, how you all just went,
In a, I guess, in a nutshell, better education for the board about certain things. I put down just be advised of like TQ trainings ahead of time and how that relates to what we have going on in the district.
and do you want a calendar of when it's happening of those trainings? Is that what you're thinking?
No,
Do you,
I'm just speaking for myself. You don't. I don't know, I think it's on the school calendar already, so we all should be advised of when that,
When they have the professional development days.
yeah, so,
More so what the development is,
Yeah.
what the staff is engaging in.
okay,
and how it benefits the teachers and benefits the students, basically, and know that ahead of time. Because we, quite frankly, I think maybe in all my years on the board, maybe you've heard once or twice, but it's after the fact, about a professional development day or, things like that. So I think knowing ahead of time, and it kind of goes back to what our vision is for the district, if that all fits in the vision.
okay.
You know, a few meetings ago, you had the math teachers come and talk about a conference they went to. That wasn't in school, but they went to a conference and came back and they were telling us the different things.
Yeah, they did.
It was really good. Yeah, it was good. And they were excited.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've never had anything like that before, where a group of teachers came and talked, unless we go to the building,
Yeah.
but we've never had them this
Well,
format.
it was nice.
So when
Yeah.
they
Right.
give you those great presentations, because we like to see our staff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we do. So they come and they give you this amazing presentation. What is a governance level question to ask them before they walk away?
See, to me, that's the tricky part, is then, if we ask pretty much the same questions we ask on the student development, right? Okay, what obstacles are in your way, blah, blah, blah. Then, are we bypassing the chain of command by asking them and not Mark?
That's a great conversation to have with Mark, and I don't want to speak for him, but I'm also going to guess. What if your staff always knew the board's gonna say, what do you need from us? Or what if Mark always knows, these are the two questions we wanna know. What do you need from us? Or how will we know, let's say they're gonna implement a new program, how will we know when it's successful? What will success look like? And it's not that you're not asking Mark the question, right? But you're saying, I think you're wanting to learn, right? I always wanted to, like, I don't know, do you want the point? Are we looking at a scale? Do we want something to go up? What is it? Because I didn't never know. So, or what will we do? What will you do differently now because you've attended XYZ conference versus before you went, right? That you're also giving them that opportunity, not to put them on the spot, but so that you're getting to say, just tell us a little bit more, right? Or what do you need from us? Because part of it is, if I were sitting in your shoes, I'd want to know that the whatever $1,000 I spent to send them, I have no idea if it was $1,000. Maybe it was $10, I don't know. But whatever we spent, those are worthwhile, right? So thinking about just even that, those are and having that conversation with Mark. Hey, we don't want to overstep you, but if we ask his friends, it's really hard when they come in and they present. And I used to get so good. This is great. Do you have any questions? No. And then knowing what that feels like, I just spent hours preparing for 15 minutes to the board, and it didn't even ask me a single question. I know how I feel. So just that's another great place for conversation.
And to maybe speak to that, like, if we're at a meeting like that with the people right there, that I don't feel like that would feel too bad. I mean, that'd be like what we probably ought to ask them. If it were like, hey, can I come to your room on Thursday and talk to you and tell me what you're not getting from the admin, that might feel a little different. But like at the table after they presented, like, what do you need to be able to keep doing this? I think that'd be great. And obviously there are some things we can give and some things we can't sometimes, so as long as we kind of know that, and I think that'd be awesome.
It's getting it's a situation where you have an opportunity for all of us to brainstorm together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
rather than wait for the superintendent to
Yes.
process it all and filter it and distill it and, you know,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
it gets back to that background information.
I think that could actually be really fun
Feel
with
like
this
we're
board. I think I've seen boards where I was in previous stops in my career where that would really not be very fun. But with this group, I think that actually could be a pretty good time.
yeah.
We're not a boring board.
Yeah, well, and we're willing to think a little bit outside of the box, which is kind of useful, I think.
And Mike, I love that you said this is where it gets hard, right? You are being so incredibly thoughtful about, I don't wanna overstep my bounds.
Yeah, I mean, because we,
I
you know,
love that.
in any other situation, we'd say, okay, well, if it was a parent, right, well, teacher, building
Yeah.
principal,
Right.
superintendent, and that's what we advise.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how it should be, so that's, you know, there's been many questions like that, you know, in presentation and stuff, but respecting the position he's in, you know, I'd never wanted to try to overstep those bounds.
And you might, as a board, maybe an activity that you wanna do is just have Kevin and you through, what are some really good questions we could ask? I have a template, I can send it to you to say, here's a whole bunch of things you could pick from, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel if you don't want to. And you could just say, what do we know, or a couple things we always wanna know. Because think how fabulous it would be if your staff knew, here's 2 questions the board's always gonna ask.
I think something too on that to help us with the type of questions, whether it's staff or student presenters. I know oftentimes we do get a little bit of a snippet of who may be presenting, but if that could get kind of honed in and maybe not even set up with the agenda, but or board packet, but maybe on the Sunday update. Hey, you know, high school math teachers are kind of today to talk to us. That way we can kind of, oh, they went to a conference here, take 5 minutes to see what this conference was, and kind of have some things, not necessarily pre-planned, but
Yeah.
kind of, so we're not just sitting there, what do I ask about a math conference? You know,
Or even, you know, would you go again,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I mean, so don't even, you know, you don't know about
but
specifically
just to have
what
a,
it
kind
is, or you
of,
know,
have a better
but-
idea of what we're coming to the table.
Some
Yeah.
think time that way.
Yeah.
That's good.
To me, I think having those presentations is kind of one of the best things we've done.
Oh, 100%.
It really is, it's changed. I think it's changed a lot of thought processes.
I think it's also key when you all get to talk about them together, right? So as opposed to, hey, I'm just gonna drop by your classroom, I wanna know blah, blah, blah. When you all get to hear the same thing and you all get to listen to each other's questions and my kid brainstorm, right? Oh my gosh, Tom's question, that was really good, made me think of this. Oh, Kevin's question was really good, now I wanna ask this, right? That's a perfect place. I think you are on the path of what I'm looking for you to do is to think about what is the thing that I want or what could be helpful to us as we really hone in on these couple of things. Your work was not meant to be complete tonight. Here's the answer, here's the thing. But it does give Mark some time to also say, would it be helpful if I brought this to you? Or when we approve the calendar, what if we talk about just a special call out? We have X number of days of professional development because y'all said it was really important to our staff, and it is, or important for our staff. So we have X number of days, and we don't have them all planned out yet. But we have 2, and here are the topics of what we know we want, right? And to keep bringing that in front of you, or maybe you want to report do we capture feedback on how it went? Not was the room hot or the room cold, or did you like the snacks, or not that, right? But nuggets that they might have pulled away from that you also get to hear about as more so than just they're doing professional development, here's where they feel like it's gonna be really helpful. That's all? Okay. You also have some work to do, and I need to go. I have 2 things, easy, I have left for you. One, I gave you an evaluation at your table, because your feedback is really, really helpful to me, and on the topic. The other piece that I would ask that you do is your very last page of this packet. Tom did one of these recently. If you rip off the very last page, the very, very last page talks about the Board Award Program. Tells you about hours you can earn, but if you rip it off, the other page says, what must I do? And you're gonna write a quick letter to yourself that in the next 30 days, what do you want to think about or focus on to be the best board member that you can be? I'm gonna give you an envelope when you have this written, you're gonna fold it up, you're gonna seal it, you're gonna put it in an envelope, and you're addressing it to yourself. I'm not reading it, it'll be lovely, I don't need to read it. Be sure and say, dear Derek, and love Derek, dear Tom, love Tom. But just, it's a check-in. It is a check-in with yourself in 30 days after you spent 2 hard hours tonight, plus probably close to an hour doing your self-assessment. What do you want to do to help yourself grow? And I'm gonna be John.
I'd like to think one thing about finishing up with this. You know, I think about, you know, all of us here, we all have our different jobs we have in the past or are doing now, and we're very busy at those things. We also gotta realize how busy Mark is and Lisa are in their job. And we can't overburden them with everything, you know. We are, yeah, like the steer, I think that was something I learned a lot too. We can't, you know, they have their jobs to do and we gotta be part of it. You just can't overburden.
Thanks, Tom.
So as you're passing that around,
I will, okay, thanks.
and they're doing this annual board award, okay, it's 15 points, right?
15 hours, yes.
Well, 15 hours. So if you go to the ISB convention and you go to the first day and you get the 2 workshops, you get 3 points or 3 hours each, right? For 6?
Yes.
And then if you stay for the second day, you get 6 hours, right?
So pre-convention is 3 hours the day before. Yes, all day on that Thursday is 6 hours. You pick a variety of things that you're doing. And then if you do the board president's workshop, and by the way, friends, you don't have to be a board president to attend. We don't check
But each
IDs.
workshop is 3 hours, right?
Pre-convention.
Yeah.
Pre-convention workshop.
Pre-convention, and, yes.
So if you go to 2, you get 6 points.
Mhm.
Okay. How many people went to 2 pre-convention workshops? You did. You did know that day, right? Okay, so, all right, so everybody, the 5 of us got 6 points for that. How many stayed for the convention the next day? That was everybody in here. So you got 6, everybody around the table got 12. How many went to the board presidents?
I'm sure
Oh.
I'll raise my hand.
That's 2 of us, so that's 2 of us who got 15 points. And we get 1 hour for the assessment and 2 hours for tonight, so that's 3 more points. So how many people had 12? Tom and Eric and Tim had 12, and now you have
Tom's got
15.
15 because he did Ready, Set, Go.
So we have 5 people that have qualified for this next year already. Just want you to know.
Yes, that's a true statement. After tonight, you do.
Now,
It doesn't mean we can stop learning.
no,
That's a beautiful statement as well.
I was actually on ISB today.
so basically,
And I owe Mike an email.
the board as a whole is gonna qualify the board award next year. Thank you.
You will. Which
You
is,
probably knew that.
I did know that, which is fabulous though, and it's a big deal. I think, what did I tell you? So last year, there are 342 school districts in the state of Iowa. Last year, there were, I can't remember if there were 30 or 29. There were not, it's a really small percentage. And I will tell you, I'm looking to, I want to see us in the state keep moving that number up. But this will be year number 2 for you all, which is a
Second
big
in a row.
deal. Which, by the way, means you've now officially started a trend. So no pressure.
So,
All
our,
those numbers
my
were-
challenge then is there needs to be another level that, if everybody can get to that level, then we need another level.
We need
that
to
is
send it
gonna-
Well, that's, no, that's
Yeah.
Atlantic.
Yeah.
Atlantic is like 25 years
Yeah.
consecutive.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, there's a small handful that have my board, in my 15 years on my home board, only one, it's did we earn it? And you know, the other thing I always say is, when I was a board member and I was working full-time, not for ISB, I used to say, ISB only gets so many of my vacation days. There are only, right, and so it depends on where you are in your life and some of those things too, but there's several websites you can always go, or several webinars you can always go back and if you see that a webinar is free, sign up for it.
Yep.
Even if you can't do it, sign up, and then once the recording becomes available, it drops right in your inbox.
Yeah.
You can find it on the website.
Yep.
I like when it drops in my inbox and then you're able to see it there, so.
Okay.
Can we, are these yours or?
Those are yours, but I am gonna take the highlighters, but I will take those and put them away for you. After I gave you all markers, oh, look at you, Mike, you just put them away for me.
Is that yours? Yeah, right here.
I'll let you
board related. You're paying to get this on.
It's getting close to coming to an end, so
Good for you. Well, yeah, you and your peers have had the challenges. So,
Thank you.
I'm grateful for what you do and keeping us all safe.
Tammy, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I
Thank you
appreciate
for,
this.
thank you for what you all do. It's not easy work. So,
Thank you for taking the time. We know you've got a long drive, you're not gonna get home till late.
that's a glamorous life that I live, so. Did I get your letter?
No, I haven't written mine yet.
Well, I can't take it with me and mail
I'll
it
send
to
it to you.
you.
I'll mail it to you so you can mail it back to me. I don't wanna keep you on the road.
You give it to Lisa and then she'll hold it for 30, is that okay?
Yeah.
I didn't even ask. And then
We'll hold it
she'll
here.
hold it for you and then she'll.
My brain's transitioning back to leading the meeting, so.
That's all right. That's all right. Can you take yours? No, thanks. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Right, friends. Thank you for your time tonight and for your service to your community, y'all.
Try to stay from here.
Thank you.
Thank you, safe trip, appreciate it. We'll, I'll follow up with you, talk to you in a few days, we'll let you get caught up. Okay. So, with that being over, I guess we got one more item, which is some, what do you call it, fiscal responsibility.
Who doesn't have a little fiscal responsibility fund here? Okay.
Okay, so I just want to preface this presentation by saying that the new budget process has added about a month of work and timeline onto my process. So a lot of the stuff that you're gonna see right today is just regarding tax rate, because the other stuff I don't have to have till later. So this is regarding that first public hearing.
And when she says, so when she says that don't have to have it till later, the reason she doesn't have it sooner is because there's a whole bunch of other stuff she now has to have sooner that
Yeah.
the new laws have kind of added.
And I guess I shouldn't say tax rate, I mean tax levies and dollars that go with that. So, okay. So I know we've gone over the timeline, but we'll just do it again. February 26th, which is tonight, obviously. We're just doing an early preliminary budget discussion, and a lot of that is focusing on the information that I have to have to the Department of Management so that it can go to the county auditor, so that it can be mailed out after March 15th. March 11th, that information is going to be hopefully approved by you for the proposed tax notice for that first hearing.
And that comes directly from the Department of Management system, so Lisa will put that information in. And there's one line, what is it, 140 characters we get to include?
300.
300 characters we get to include where we get to give some sort of explanation to it, but it actually comes directly out of the program into a pre-designed tax hearing format, so.
Yeah.
And it's a super confusing and highly full of misinformation format that the state's put together.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
So April 8th, we'll have that first public hearing on that proposed tax notice that's gonna be mailed out to the public. It has to be a separate hearing. It can be on the same night as the regular meeting, but it has to be its own public hearing. And then April 22nd is when we have our normal, adoption of the certified budget. The tax notice, so this year the county auditor's office will mail that tax notice. I think we just talked about that, so. Has to be mailed out to the property owners, that is done by the county auditor, but we have to put it in the newspaper. And on the same day that it's published in the newspaper, we also have to put it on all of the district-owned social media pages and on the website.
So question, and I don't have an answer to this or not. Is this for any government entity?
It
Is
is,
it-
I don't,
well,
do cities
mhm.
do that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I might be wrong, but I think so.
we know definitely schools, but
Yeah.
I didn't know if in that
yeah.
law, if it said, it was just
You
curiosity.
I think you're right,
I
Archie.
think-
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so I just kind of want to show you what our budget year enrollment trend is. This gets kind of confusing, so hopefully, Mark, I will hopefully explain
We
this.
spent a little while trying to figure out the best way to word this today.
So on October 31st of this year, 2023, the count, it was 1,330.56. And that says 2025 because what we count this year is the money for 2025. So that's why that looks that way, so. 2026 is just an estimate. We've, one of our assumptions for the 5-year forecast is always -10, so that's what I went with. Also, little blurb there that we had a net loss of 45.94 students since 2019, so just, that's pretty important. State supplemental aid, there's a history of that from fiscal year 16 on. The FY25 is in white because the state hasn't said that yet. So this information that's going out to the public is based on a 3%, even though that is not correct, because we don't know what it is.
So part of the process that's been set up that affects schools this tax season is in saying that the tax rate part has to be out when it has to be out and has to be sent out via that sheet. And they've now passed a bill to allow themselves to wait until the end of the session to pass SSA. We now have to guess at SSA in order to set our tax rate. So what we have to do, what the experts, I would say, the people who teach us are telling us to do is set it based on a higher SSA, because if the SSA goes up, you won't have the authority to levy for the cash that you should have in order to pay for student needs in your general fund. So setting it at 3% doesn't necessarily mean that we think that's gonna happen, though there are some positive indicators for that.
The House
Just-
passed that, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it was the House,
Oh,
but
not the
it hasn't
Senate.
gone to the Senate yet then.
So just to clarify, especially for those watching home, the state has passed a law for the district to meet statutory requirements to submit budget and tax information to individual taxpayers. And we have to meet those deadlines. But they also gave themselves a hall pass for their statutory requirements to give us the information we need in order to do so. So in other words, the legislature is not playing by the same rules that we are. They've put a requirement on school districts to get the information to taxpayers, yet they are not giving us the information we need from them in order to accurately do that.
So
Just the way the system's working.
what you're gonna see a lot of this year, because this happens to coincide with the first year of this new tax proposal thing being sent out to everybody, right? What you're gonna see a lot of this year is, you'll see as we go through, there's not a lot of control that a board truly has to change the tax levy. Most of it is statutorily determined. But the little bit that boards have the control around the state, you'll probably see boards tend to pad it slightly in that initial tax proposal, because you can't go above what's proposed, you can go below. So people will get very angry thinking that their taxes are gonna go way up most places. Whereas in reality, once SSA is set and everything's in place, they may actually end up going down in those same places. It just, kind of sets up a scenario with uncertainty where you have to predict kind of the worst going into that, just to be ready.
Essentially, worst case, if we're thinking it's truly gonna be 2%, and we put 2%, but then they surprise us with 3, we're stuck at 2.
And we wouldn't be able to fund fully each student's education then. So, just kind of a weird quirk in how they built that.
So I just want to talk about levy rates, and this is for what I'm proposing for this to go out on the notice. This is what is board controlled. Cash reserve levy, it's 0 this year because we can't do any cash reserve levy because we're not cash poor, so. Regular PEPAL is 33 cents. Management, 223, we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. And instructional support is 133 right now. So those are the only levy rates that the board can control.
And you'll notice there's 0 on surplus debt service,
Oh,
so
sorry.
that's because, we, in speaking with, was it Matt that we talked to, or was it?
Matt Gillespie.
Yeah, in speaking with him, it would actually cost us about the amount that we would gain out of doing, I think we could do like, what was it, like 5 cents or something this year? But it would cost us just about the amount we were gonna make on that. So there will be years in the span of our bonds where we will be able to do some surplus debt service in order to pay off loans earlier and save the taxpayers money in the long run. Just this year, it didn't actually provide any savings.
So the number was something like, we could go out and levy for excess debt service of like $30,000, but the management fees for that fund for whatever bank in Kansas is was like $15,000. So we didn't think we should put $15,000 expense on taxpayers just to pay out $15,000 a bond. It didn't make sense.
There are a couple years in the life of the bonds though, where it will be pretty feasible and actually make a real dent in the long-term cost of the taxpayers to do that, just not this year.
I mean, if we could have levied $100,000 of debt reduction for $15,000,
Yeah.
that would have saved a ton, that would have saved more interest later down the road, but just the math doesn't work right now.
And the next thing is voter control levy rates. Voted PEPAL, that's not like we can do $1.34. It says 92 cents because we gotta have income surtax that makes up the difference. So that's what that is. Basic debt service is $250 this year. It can go to $270, but,
It doesn't give us much.
yeah.
Did you have a question? No, I was thinking
I get it.
And
That voter
the-
PEPAL part is always kind of weird, right? Because you always hear the 133, but with that income surtax, it sort of spreads, instead of just property owners paying towards that voter PEPAL, it's spread among all wage earners, at least for a portion.
And instructional support levy is that way as well, so just so you know. Debt service, that $250 is what will get us to the amount of money that we have to pay our bills, so that's where that comes from. And then the school foundation formula is the rest of it, it's $936. That is where you take the taxable valuation times the uniform levy rate of $540, and then the additional levy amount, so that's what makes that up. So those are our levy rates. Now, there's a view of what they actually are, so FY '24, we were at $16.99, and FY '25, we're gonna be going down 32 cents and $16.67 in the preliminary estimates, so.
So this would be, I think, was it the third or the fourth year of a decline in our rate?
It is, fourth year.
Fourth year.
Okay.
Tentatively, all depending on
Yeah.
how things go, right?
And this is what it looks like numbers wise, so, one of the big numbers there is management. And the reason why I'm proposing to add more on the management levy than last year is, because we have I'm told to expect double-digit increases in property and liability insurance. We're looking at breakdown,
Break fix.
break fix insurance,
So that actually should reduce the burden to our general fund with our copiers. So it'll help cover the service portion of that contract. Not like, I think maybe I sent one of my emails early in the year, we had a company that was trying to pitch putting the whole copier as an insurance product, and we were super uncomfortable with that. But just covering the service portion through this break fix insurance, it's something that actually, a few schools that we talked to have worked through it. Burlington had used that when I was there, to great effect.
You know, it's really interesting, the trend of getting all these insurance contracts under management fund.
It is, isn't it?
Utility insurance.
Yep.
I'm expecting that to increase as well, although
Yeah.
I haven't heard too much about it yet, so. And, our management levy, if we do this, the fund balance, it has enough to pay the bills on July first, because I want people to understand that most of those bills come on July
Yeah.
first, so it's not like you can pay them while you're getting paid through the year. And then there's a balance for, an early retirement if we need that at some point in the future.
And as we looked forward, it doesn't look like we would need the levy management at that high of a rate in the future, so we may be able to see some decent drops again in our tax rate, the next year. If things continue, we just, to get back to as healthy as we need to be able to pay those bills on July 1, we just need to do a little bit more next year than this year in that area.
So, when that proposed tax document is mailed out, we have 300 characters, to say why, we're not talking, we don't say why our tax rate increases, because it's not, but we have to explain why the dollar amounts increase. So, my explanation in that will be, management fund due to, increases in cost, and then also in the general fund portion of it, our valuations went up 7%, so that's,
Which kind of offset our 30-some cent rate decrease
yeah.
for a lot of people.
So that's what I'm gonna be explaining in
Yeah.
that notice. I just thought this was a fun, comparison, but overlapping tax authority rates for, people in our county. I just wanna point out that the school district's rates have decreased for 5 years now, so.
And here's the thing about it, when you go back to it was 1873 for several years. And the 1873 rate was before we stopped levying for cash. Because that was maxed out. And when we went to 1761 was the first year we had $2.70 for debt service that the voters approved. And so that 270 is actually 250 this year. In comparison, if we didn't have the debt service for the high school, our levy would be 1459. So that's a huge drop over time.
And Lisa has a really good plan for, assuming that the game doesn't change, because we all know it could change tomorrow at the legislative table, but if the game doesn't change, years that we need to levy for cash in the future, we won't need to levy as much of the management, because we can kind of balance those off to make sure that we're not putting a big hit on the taxpayers in one given year.
I mean, that's an amazing thing to go from 1873 to 1699 and add $2.70 of debt. It really is.
Okay. Just a few notes about the levy rate. Obviously, the final levy rate can change. It will change, my guess is, but, so these numbers that you're seeing are not final. After the Department of Management releases the rate, you can lower it, like Mark said, but you can't raise it from what's published. District income tax receipts are not released from the Department of Management till March. Actually, they did, so those are actually already accurate. And subsequent legislative risk, so, I mean, that's always out there. And
It'll
then
be
just,
interesting to see the flow through part with the A gauge,
How that-
depending on what gets settled on there.
this is just another little timeline. So we're doing our budget workshop.
Did you find a new graphics program or something?
This is not mine. This is not mine, but I like it, so I want to.
Cameron, did you do this?
And Mark really helped me with
Oh.
some of the graphics here.
Not this
So
one,
much
though.
better at that. So March 11th, like I said, we're gonna do the budget recommendation and approval of what is gonna go out to everybody, so, the information. Let's see. April 8th is where we have that first public hearing. On that notice that goes out to everybody who, and they will be allowed to come in and let us know how they feel about it. The publication for that will be in the newspaper on March 20th, just so you know, so that's when it will go out on social media and on our website. Oh shoot, what happened? April 22nd is when we'll have our regular public hearing and adoption of the certified budget. I will put that publication in the newspaper on April 3rd. That one is only required to be in the newspaper, so that's what we will do. And then before April 30th is when I have to file it with the county auditor. And just a reminder that this is a condensed version of my presentation. I'll have some more information, obviously.
And way more graphs.
Exactly.
Really fun.
Does anybody have any questions about this first process? Anybody have any concerns about the levies or the rate or the dollars that?
We can't control the legislature.
My only concern will be that initial public hearing after the mailings, to potentially expect more visitors.
Yeah.
And that's okay, they have the right to.
No, I know, and maybe just to think about having it at a different location just in case.
What I think, we talked a little bit, we just extended presentation and some really good data in there to help people kind of understand what little bit we truly have control over. So I think we may do I believe we've just determined that it can be done where you can present and then have public comment on that.
I
So,
think so.
so we thought that might be useful so that people would know, like, okay, so if I'm asking this question, here's kind of the answer to that, maybe I want to ask this question instead. Kind of give people a chance to ask informed questions that way.
So on that public hearing, is that just kind of like public comment where they just listen, or is it something where we respond to questions?
I don't know.
I think you could respond to questions, but I'm not sure, I'll find out.
Yeah.
But it's, the purpose of that public hearing is for the voter, for them to voice concerns, and then we're supposed
To make adjustments.
to take that into
Possible.
consideration if we so choose to, so.
Yeah.
I just want to know what the ground rules are going to be.
We can, we'll ask that, because it is a little bit different,
It's
like
a
with
new
it being a
thing,
public
yeah.
hearing. It's not like public comment at a normal meeting that way.
Yeah, we just need to know those rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last thing you wanna do is somebody come in and say something about it and not be able to explain.
Well, it goes back to what's the.
We don't know all the
Yeah,
And I
we
would,
can find that out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good to know.
and I would
Well, yeah.
encourage anybody.
Typically, a public hearing is
You
a
can talk,
can.
kind of a dialogue.
yeah,
They make a
which would be
statement or
way
ask
more
a question.
useful.
Because that
in
is,
this
I mean,
setting.
that's the only agenda item, that's its only meeting, so.
Yeah,
I would encourage anybody out there that gets
I
the
would-
mailing, if they have a question, give us a call so that we can explain it. Because I think that what's gonna go out is gonna be confusing, so,
is it,
we
is it
wanna
2 or 3
answer the
rates that
questions.
it lists?
Yeah, it,
Because
It
that
lists
middle
3.
column is, so the middle column is the weirdest thing on it. It's what the tax rate would be if you didn't make any changes in valuations
Right.
or, no, you didn't make any changes in valuations, right?
Right.
So it's like $1 higher than what the tax rate would actually be,
but nobody's gonna have that in the tax rate, so it's.
Right.
Yeah,
right?
So basically what's going out is
It's not
pretty much
paper.
not worth, yeah, it's not
Yeah.
worth the paper it's getting,
Yeah,
because it means absolutely nothing. This is worst case scenario, but it's nothing that's gonna be changed.
right,
No.
Just thinking out loud.
Legislature,
Yeah,
yeah.
What, thinking out loud, would it be beneficial or more problematic to kind of start pushing some of this out on our socials?
That's
As
a
far
fair
as,
question.
this is what's coming, this is
Yeah.
what we know. When you get this, don't be alarmed type thing.
I like what you're saying, and one thing that I wondered about is explaining what that, if we should maybe explain what that
What's
postcard
gonna
look
be
at means.
I mean, it would, well,
Maybe
That's
you
a good
and, maybe you
question.
and Kelly Howard could get on
Yeah.
MCN or something, or.
To kind of try to help
Kind of
us
spitball
people understand it.
a
cause I
We
bet
talked
you
to-
a high 99% of the people don't know this is coming.
No, I'll guarantee you they don't.
Yeah. Can we?
And it's gonna cause a lot of confusion.
It's gonna cause a lot of phones to ring, and it's gonna say, oh my God, they're raising the taxes again.
But the good news is, like, hopefully phones do ring, because then we can kind of explain to people, like, hey, here's the reality of what this really does for you.
I think we can try to get ahead of it a little bit. I mean, there's,
Yeah,
that's only against the wall on it, but.
right. But I mean, I'd rather have a phone ring and get to walk somebody through it
Oh,
and let
absolutely.
them, than make somebody sit at home and think, oh gosh, this is terrible, what's wrong with them? You know? But I like that, we could look about being proactive, that's a good idea.
So I guess I would just end this with, look it over. I mean, there are some things that you guys, can change if you don't
We
want,
get that whole slow down.
And if you have anything that if you wanna make changes or you wanna talk about it, March 11th is when the final time that we'll do it before.
I would just beg not to change ISL.
Yeah, so, that's my presentation.
Great graphics. Any questions for Lisa? Okay. I have my agenda close, so I think that's it, right?
That's it.
All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
we have a motion second to adjourn, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you for watching online, appreciate it, I know it's probably hard to follow, but thanks for watching.